Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18 Tarot and Books. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. This is my April 2023 recap. I will timestamp below as always because you know I ramble. This month I'm going to try to put everything in one video, including a couple of little life updates, a brief chat about the decks that I've purchased this month, that I've worked with the most this month, what my tarot practice has looked like this month. The books that I've read this month, there are 11 of them. I'm going to aspire to be efficient. A look at my page a day book, which I've been sharing at the end of each update. You'll recall I was kind of struggling with the page a day last month. I've made a big change to it that I'm really happy with. And a quick check-in on my, tarot or oracle decks to explore / wish list, which really hasn't changed very much since the last update. So before I get into kind of general life updates, which there really isn't much to share from this month, I'll just mention that tomorrow on Sunday, the last day of April, I will be on my friend Sarah Waterchild Tarot's channel. And we're going to do a live in the morning where together we do the 21 tarot questions tag by Lisa and Peggy Pepez. So if you would like to join us for our live, I think we're going with 10 a.m. Eastern time. And come and say hi in the chat. I'm really looking forward to it, to chatting and doing that tag. I haven't had much happen in April to share in terms of general life updates. As always, work has been busy, done, the odd little thing around the house, getting ready for spring, getting ready for gardening. Not a ton to share. The one thing I will share, because it's kind of directly relevant to this channel and what I share on this channel, is that I have replaced my laptop. I've been using a laptop with a webcam to film these videos for the most part. Anywhere I'm sitting here, which is most of my videos, have been on my webcam. And the laptop that I have been using, for the duration of my channel, is the first and only laptop I've ever owned. It's 10 years old, and it has really, over the past, 3-4 months, been starting to show concerning signs of nearing the end of its life. I did replace the hard drive with a solid state some years ago, but it's really old, right? And so finally, after much kind of back and forth about whether or not it was time, and talking to my brother, who's a computer programmer who has a much better sense of computers than I do, and looking at sales, I did finally make the decision to replace my laptop. And so I'm going to ask for kind of patience, forgiveness as I figure out this laptop. I've decided to give the Windows that it came with a chance. I've been a Linux person for pretty much my entire adult life. I've been using Linux Mint on the computer that I film videos with. So I'm really trying out some new software and seeing what I think of it. I might end up wiping it and putting Linux on it in a month if I get too impatient with it. But, it's harder with a laptop, is much harder with a laptop than a desktop to buy something without an operating system on it at all. A desktop, if I was buying one of those, I would buy, and have only ever really bought, towers that have no operating system at all. With a laptop, I figure like the Windows is part of what I've paid for. So I do want to see, if I like some of the options. Some of the software I use won't be changing. Like I like Canva, and I use it in a browser, so that, it makes no difference where I'm using that. But I'm using a different webcam software. I'm going to be trying a couple of different video editing softwares. There are Linux-based ones that work fine on Windows. I'm going to play around with that and just see what I like. So for the next little while, my video quality and video look may be inconsistent. It may be that I'm going to try out a little bit more editing than I usually do. I'm not really thinking I'm going to become a real editing enthusiast, but I'm keen to see what this can do and see in terms of creative things that I could get up to, what that might look like. So apologies for the inconsistency. I don't need it pointed out to me if my video quality is not the way that it has been for the next little while. Thank you. We'll see where it goes. I'm hoping that I can get, more consistent editing with showing things like book covers and so on. So looking forward to that. So far, I find Windows infuriating, I will say. My spirit is Linux, so I'm not sure how this will go. We shall see. Moving on. Decks that I have purchased or received this month. Last month, you may recall if you were here with my update last month. Last month was my birthday month. I turned 36. And so there was some treat happening last month. I treated myself a little bit last month. I received a deck as a gift from my partner last month. Picked up a couple bottles of ink last month. Justified some things because it was my birthday month last month. So I haven't been doing much in the way of shopping this month. I did pre-order one deck and back one deck on Kickstarter. The deck that I backed on Kickstarter was a total surprise, and that is the Turning Terrestrial Tides Tarot. I will link below because as of this filming, the campaign is still happening. I didn't know that this was in the works. I stumbled on it and immediately went for it. It's a zine style deck. Feels very kind of anarchic. It has some astrology influence in it. It's created by Sarah Calvarese. I apologize. I'm not sure which pronunciation it is. Who created the Eighth House Tarot, and I think several other decks as well. And it's also being put out by PM Press. And PM Press is an anarchist publisher. They put out a lot of really great material. I've supported PM Press on Kickstarter before because they will sometimes launch books there, and it can be a good way to get the ebook kind of early and affordably. For me, I usually go ebooks from them, because of shipping costs and that. But I was so excited about the Turning Terrestrial Tides Tarot. I think it looks really cool. There's a lot of text, kind of collage, very kind of 90s anarchist zine fair kind of look. And I really like that. And so I backed for the deck and for a hoodie as well, because I now have a job where I can wear a hoodie to work and my office is freezing. I like a hoodie. That's what I'm going for. So I backed for that. Really excited. I also decided to pre-order the other version, the summer version of Mags's Tree Whisper Oracle. And I've shown this before. This is recent to my collection. I've been working with this a ton, for kind of daily draw type work. I really have been enjoying this. I really like the keywords in this deck. I knew that I would like this. This is a very druid deck. But I've really, really been enjoying it. And so that was kind of a point in favor of also getting the other version of this, and kind of a point against doing so, because my brain kind of went, well, if you like this one so much that you already have, will you use the other one as much? Will you like the other one as much? Do you need the other one? I mean, I don't need. Would I like the other one? But it's different keywords. And I think that, the mix of kind of seasons will be really nice, though the creator is not in the same geographical location as me, so our seasons do not look the same. None of this looks like winter where I live. But I'm excited. I'm excited about that. So I'll share that when it arrives. The decks aren't with the creator yet, so I think it'll be a little while before I get that. But that's my deck purchases this month. I haven't received anything this month from previous. That's my decks for the month. I am hoping that next month I will get to tell you that I've finally received my literary tarot, which has been outstanding for a very long time. I finally got billed for shipping. for that one, for that campaign that was quite a long time ago now. But I haven't gotten it yet. I will share that update when it comes. That's my decks for the month. Other decks that I've been working with a lot this month. I have been deep diving with the Terror of the Silicon Dawn by Egypt Urnash. Warning for nudity. I have this deck in order right now, so I'm not going to change that. I have been reading the guidebook for this. This is an out-of-print deck that was printed by Los Scarabeo. I found a copy in a shop quite some time, like last summer. And I want to do a video, kind of detailed deep dive deck review of this deck. It's a really interesting one. Thinking about what queering tarot might actually look like. I feel like this deck is an interesting one to talk about in that way because the structure is so different in this deck. There's a lot of extra cards. There are 99s, so like there's 1 to 10 plus a 99 in all of the suits. There are these kind of shadow cards that it's all spot gloss. I don't know if this is going to pick up very well. Which are kind of interesting. There are extra majors that are, pretty interesting. Vulture. She's legend. There's a bunch of extra fools. I think there's 4 fools, maybe 5. So I'm reading the book and I'm enjoying the book, and I don't often enjoy. I have to share it with you all when I find a tarot guidebook that I enjoy because I'm critical. And I say that like no shame. Being critical of books is a good thing. I am enjoying that one. So I will share that when I get there. I have been working with the Tarot of the Cat People. The context for me working with the Tarot of the Cat People and the majors, I have them in order right now, is that me and some other folks have been reading the Traveler's Report, the bigger book that goes with this deck, as a group and Zooming to talk about it. We're going to do so again soon. And so I read the Traveler's Report this month. I really love this deck. I think that the Traveler's Report is a fun background to it because it really gets into the different worlds that these people live in. I'll share more about that in the book section, but I've been really enjoying this. I think that those of us who've been reading the guidebook together are going to make a video about this deck and the guidebook as a group. So I will update, make sure that there's a link somewhere and that folks can find it when we do that. So looking forward to sharing that. The other thing that I've been using a ton this month is my Elemental Divination Dice Oracle. I've talked about this one before. People know that I love this. Rolling a couple of D6s to have a reading about kind of prevailing kind of energetic winds, so to speak, energetic weather, and incorporating that into my day. I really like this. I think I got from Kelly Fitzgerald. I'm going to say it was Kelly Fitzgerald. The idea of divination as kind of sticking your finger in the energetic wind. I want to say that was Kelly. And I think about that with this. I really like this a lot. So that's what I've been working with the most this month. Continuing on, books. I read 11 books. I had a good reading month overall. I had one DNF, which I won't talk about, but I read 11 books that I will talk about. I have a few of them in hard copy to share with you. A lot of them were ebooks. And I'll try to be not horrifyingly verbose about each one. No promises, though. Okay, so I read a couple of books for my AODA Druidry curriculum studies. The first one that I finished this month, but I did not read the whole thing in 1 month. My goodness, this thing took forever. It was a book of Druidry by Ross Nichols. Ross Nichols is, of course, an important figure in revival Druidry. He led OBOD from 1964 to 1975. He has had influence on what we now understand as a Wheel of the Year framework, along with Gerald Gardner. And this is a kind of gathering, a kind of posthumous gathering of writings that we read in AODA as a kind of interesting historical text in the context of the history of revival Druidry. This is not a history of revival Druidry, but it's a kind of exemplary book of what some of the earlier revival Druidry writings are like. I don't really think that this book will be of interest to anybody who is not really interested in the backdrop of revival Druidry. There's these big long sections with kind of not entirely accurate archaeological speculation about various kind of dig sites and ancient kind of sites like Stonehenge or Avebury or the Chalice Well and these different kind of places, and it this was a slow one for me. There were some sections that I found very, very interesting. The backdrop of all these different folks involved in very, very, very early Druid orders was interesting to me. But my goodness, the not so good archaeological analysis was very long and very dry. There were some interesting sections on Druidic concepts, thinking about significance of Arthur, thinking about some of the different Ogham trees, some different Mabinogi and mythology and things like that were interesting, but my goodness, the interesting stuff was squished between a lot of things that I could have skipped. So that was that. The Druid reading is really hit and miss in the curriculum, I will say. I recognize why each book is chosen. They're not all the most interesting. I also read Jabari Ghazul's Ecology, a very short introduction. And we're supposed to read an ecology book, not necessarily this one. There were a couple of different ones to pick from. I chose this one based on it being described as less specific to a single region than some of the other book suggestions. This is very much an introduction to basic concepts in ecology. I learned a lot from this. I learned a lot of terminology from this. I learned a little bit about the history of ecology as a field. There are lots of interesting kind of diagrams of this is a diagram of a food web. This is the actual food web, and then this bottom one says everything else is eaten by cod, and then seals eat both cod and everything else. And that's the simplified version, and that's the full version of the food web. Lots of interesting things in here. Some description of different ecological directions that are being taken in terms of kind of environmentalist shifts. A good introduction, I would say, overall. Yeah, if you're interested in very basic concepts in ecology. So that was good. I already mentioned that I read Terror of the Cat People Traveler's Report. This is a extra guidebook that used to come in a box with Terror of the Cat People, and then after that, for a while, Terror of the Cat People only came with a little white book. I found this in a box set in a shop. But this is also, I think, not difficult to find on places like Abe Books for not exorbitant prices. There seem to be copies of this floating around. So it mostly is focused on the world of the cat people, and each of the 4 suits plus the majors, so 5 total, are different kind of kingdoms, I guess, or nations of the cat people. And so the book goes through their different cultures and economies and worldviews and what they get up to and their relationship with cats and their clothing and customs and all kinds of things. And then it goes through card by card. A fair amount of this is in the little white book. This is not vital, I would say, unless you're really interested in the world building of the deck and want to read a bunch of extra on that. I thought it was good. I enjoy this kind of world building. I will say that, this was written when? This is copyright 1991. This definitely falls into some of the problems that anthropologically informed science fiction that takes real on earth communities as inspiration for science fictional communities can fall into. Like, definitely some exotification going on, definitely some kind of Eurocentric attitudes going on in terms of how the different communities are described. Shockingly gender binary to me. Like, you're thinking about a fantastical world. What are you doing? But very, very heteronormative, cis-normative world that this fantasy world is. Not my fantasy world, we'll say that. But as a guidebook, I think that this is really good insofar as it really gives so much backstory to the deck. So I'm glad I read it. Do I think it's like the most fabulous science fiction? No. But there are novels based in the cat people world, and I do plan to read at least one of them. I think there are 2. I will share when I've read those. I then read a whole bunch of fiction. With Seiji, the Artisan Geeks book club. Seiji is on YouTube as the Artisan Geek, as well as on Patreon. The book club is through Patreon and on Discord. We read Yang Ge's Strange Beasts of China. This was on my list to read for a very long time, and I was glad that it got picked. It was very strange. It's a very eerie, unsettling book. It almost reads like a collection of short stories. Each chapter looks at a particular kind of beast. And it always begins each chapter with, a description of these beasts have gills and are very tall. And, if they laugh, they will die. And other than that, they're just like people, or something like this. It's always, and other than that, they're just like humans. And then the chapter deals with kind of the relationship between humans and this particular kind of beast. And very frequently, that relationship is very problematic and exploitative. And very frequently, they don't end happily, a lot of them. It was a bit of a tough read, actually. I really liked it overall. Very strange. Very difficult book to very succinctly describe. But unlike anything I've ever read before. I read a debut novel by Vajra Chandrasekhara, The Saint of Bright Doors. I got this as an ARC through NetGalley. And The Saint of Bright Doors follows, several characters in a world where there are magical doors. The city is full of these brightly colored, hence bright doors, doors that are all around. They don't open. Some people feel certain ways when they're near them, like they might hear something on the other side or feel, a temperature change or things like this, but these doors do not open. And there's studies of these doors going on, how they appear, why they appear, where they might go. And so I was really interested in that because that just feels totally magical to me. This one didn't quite do everything that I wanted it to do in terms of the really interesting kind of world that had been built up. But it was good. It was good overall. And there was lots of things that I liked about it. I wanted more about the doors, though. Because they didn't feel quite as central as I thought that they would be, which is interesting. I read a novella called In the Watchful City by S.Q.U. Liu. And this one is a kind of... It felt a little bit, if it's like anything, like The Matrix. Because the central character in this novella is responsible for watching over the city, and that involves kind of plugging in a kind of physiological, like a cyborg kind of a way. Plugging into a kind of system that can watch the city, and it allows for putting one's consciousness into, different animals that are around the city and seeing what is going on by doing that. This was very strange and very interesting to me. Again, it's hard to talk about some of these without giving huge spoilers or without giving a huge sense of a twist that you really don't want to know when you're starting out. But certainly the book asks interesting questions about not just kind of surveillance, which is probably fairly obvious, but memory. There's kind of a series of short stories inside the novella because of the way the novella is structured around kind of two characters meeting, and one of them tells the other a series of stories. So there are these kind of fairly disconnected short stories in the middle of a novella, and a novella is already not very long. There's a lot squished into this novella because of the structure of the different short stories inside of it. I really liked some sections a lot more than others. And probably other readers did as well, and maybe didn't even like the same ones as me, but it made it a little bit, I don't want to say not cohesive, but kind of not cohesive, but I liked it. I read The Necessity of Stars by E. Catherine Tobler. This is a short story novella. And this one seems to deal with aliens, perhaps. It certainly deals with a mid to post human-induced climactic disaster kind of a world. And, whether or not the book actually deals with aliens is I think, open to reader interpretation, because a lot of what the book does deal with is Alzheimer's and memory loss and, uncertainty about, one's own clarity about one's surroundings. It follows an elderly protagonist, and I thought that those aspects were very, very well done. I feel like I wanted it to be longer. There were some parts that I think needed more exploration, but I really liked how aging and kind of the aging mind was grappled with in this work. I thought that was very good. I just finished a novel, House of Gold by C.T. Ruizi, who I've read before. I read a short story by him. I've shared it on this channel. I think it might have even been last month, or it might have been the month before. So I got his novel House of Gold as a ARC through NetGalley. And this is a kind of Afrofuturist novel set in a world in which there is a lot of kind of cyborg technology human technology kind of intermingling and interfacing. And there is a kind of project underway, and this is something that you learn very early on, so it's not too much of a spoiler. There's a kind of project underway that involves eugenic genetic modification to humans. And the characters that the book focuses on are genetically modified humans, designed to be very strong, very kind of skilled in political strategy and maneuvering and manipulation and causing revolutions. And so it follows these characters, and I feel like a lot of what the book actually deals with is how much of these characters' kind of destiny is determined by how they were created and raised and trained to do one thing versus their agency. And it gets into a lot of other questions as well. I think it deals a lot with class inequality. It deals a lot with the necessity of violence to create political change. It deals a lot with gender to some extent. Like it's not a huge theme, but I think it's there as a theme for sure. I thought this was good. I thought it was good. I think that in some ways, I think that it will appeal to folks who like YA sci-fi more than I do. I think that there's crossover there in terms of how those themes are handled. I thought it was good, and I'm looking forward to reading more from him. I read The River of Silver by S.A. Chakraborty. Folks will know, if you've watched my channel for a while and you've heard me talk about it, I love S.A. Chakraborty's Devabad trilogy, which starts with City of Brass, and this is a book of short stories set in that world. And they're from all different perspectives of different characters in that world, some of whom are POV characters in the trilogy and some of whom are not. Each short story gives you a brief note at the beginning of where in the timeline the short story is, and also then whether it has spoilers for anything in the trilogy. So like this first chapter, for example, or story, this scene takes place a year or so after the previous one and contains spoilers for all three books. So it tells you, I would not read this before reading the Devabad trilogy, or at least the first book, because I think that what this did for me is just gave me another little bit of all of these characters that I became very attached to over the course of the trilogy. It let me kind of go back to this world that I found very compelling and interesting, and you know, I rated that trilogy very highly. And so this was just, I couldn't 5-star this fast enough. I tried to not read it in too much of a hurry, but then I did. And then it was over. And I don't think there's going to be any more Devabad trilogy books. I really liked this. This was really good. I will mention that she has, and I believe she's now writing under Shannon Chakraborty, which is her first name, or her first name and last name rather than S.A. She has a new one. She has a new novel, which is a pirate one. And it's going to be a start of a new trilogy. And it just came out. And the only reason I haven't bought it yet is because I think I'm oscillating between getting it on the Kindle, where I read most of my books, versus maybe I really would like the hard copy with the pirate art on the front. I love S.A. Chakraborty's books. So I'm very excited. I love that. Recommend, but not if you haven't read the trilogy. I finished out the month, or like end part of the month, mostly anyway, reading 2 books by Martha Wells, The Serpent Sea and The Siren Depths. These are books 2 and 3 in the Book of the Raksura series. I read the first one a couple of months ago. I'm now reading the 4th one. I read 2 books in a series this month, and I'm reading another right now. These are really good fantasy novels. I have loved Martha Wells because of loving Murderbot. And, that's science fiction and is kind of in publication right now. There are more Murderbot books coming. And The Raxura is an older fantasy series by the same author. And it is so, so good. Martha Wells is now one of my favorite authors because sci-fi and fantasy are both really good. The Raxura are... They're very much... They're almost like dragon-like shapeshifter species who have multiple forms, a kind of winged form and a non-winged form, or most of them do. There are some that don't have wings ever, but many of them do. They live in different communities, and those communities kind of form alliances with each other, and it's such an amazing world that feels nothing like anything. Like, it's very clearly, unlike something like The Cat People, which very explicitly takes different human societies as inspiration, the Raxura are very clearly based on nothing like that. They are not analog for anything in the real world. They're persons. They're very much not human, but they are such well-developed persons as characters. I love this series so much. And the 3rd book, The Siren Depths, was the best one so far. And so I've read 3 novels in the series. Now I'm reading a book of 2 novellas and a short story. After that, there's another book of 2 novellas and a short story, and then there's 2 more novels. I may be turning up in my May 2023 recap and talking about nothing but Martha Wells, because I am so in. I'm excited. I am excited, friends. Check out Martha Wells if you have not already. That's my reading for the month. Now, my page a day book. I have been sharing this, and early on had been using this for just different kind of artwork. Early on in January, I was sharing drawing some trees, making some different artwork. And so conceptualize this initially as, just some kind of creative something once a day. And I really struggled to keep up with it and struggled with kind of figuring out where it fit in my practice. So I have made a shift with this book at the beginning of this month. This book is now where my journaling for my card of the day or cards of the day lives. I am back to a daily practice with sometimes oracle, sometimes tarot, sometimes both, but something in the morning. Picking a card or 2 generally, or sometimes it's I've been really enjoying using the dice oracle plus an oracle card, or the dice oracle plus a tarot card. Like, that works really well for me as a daily. But this is now exactly what I want it to be. There's enough space on a page for me to write down, some ideas about my cards of the day. That will mean that my journal, like my long form journal that I write about longer readings in, or that I just kind of free write journal in, that will last longer. It resolves the issue of trying to write about a card of the day and then only having enough to fill half a page, and then things get kind of muddled. So I'm using it daily, which was my initial plan, but I'm using it for daily draws, which was not my initial plan. But I'm very, very happy with that shift. And I think that, obviously I will change things up if it's not working for me. I've changed up quite a few things from when I started and made my planner plans video. Things have gone in different directions than I expected, but this feels really, really good. Having a daily practice in the morning, I have gone back and forth on. I sometimes was finding it to be a bit too granular. It's like it's too frequent. But then I miss it. I miss it when I don't have a daily draw. So I'm back to a daily draw. And this is perfect for a daily draw. It's the right size to have enough room to write, but not too much. I think I will probably end up using, I'll do this at the end of the month, I think. I'll end up going back to using some of these kind of front pages to keep track of what my daily draws were so I can see any patterns more easily. I'm really happy. I'm really, really happy with my daily draw. I'm back to daily draws. And I think maybe I'll make a video about what my daily practice looks like. That involves a couple of things. A druid ritual as well as daily draw, a little bit of journaling. I think videos about people's practices are interesting, so I think I'll probably share that at some point. I'm also working on an original tag, which I hope to debut this month, focused on, rhythms of practice, like daily practices, weekly practices, moon phase related practices, and kind of timing considerations in different kinds of, tarot or other kinds of divinatory types of work. So I'm interested in what other people do and what kind of pacing works for them, because this is something that I find myself thinking about a lot and adjusting a lot for myself personally. So I'm going to make a video about that, and I will hope that folks make VRs to it. Last thing that I mentioned that I would share is a check-in on my little wish list. And I will just say, other than writing in the deck that I backed and the deck that I pre-ordered that I already mentioned, not really much has changed. I don't remember how far I was down this list this time last month. I know I mentioned that I'm interested in the Diverse Marseille, but that will be, whenever the next Make Plan Cards order is, I'll think about that. I'm waiting for Nellie's deck from Kelly Fitzgerald. Not out yet. And nothing else has really changed on my list. So I'm using the My 100 list at the end of the Kinbor. So there's 100 lines with a little checkbox beside it. I have written something in 20 lines so far, like written down a deck. Of those, I've purchased 9. That's all the purchases of this year so far. And I've also crossed out 3, but then one of them got written back in again. So actually I haven't written down 20. I've written down 19 because one of them landed on the list twice. So that's where that is. I find it interesting to write these things down. Though I'm also like changing things and writing things down in the wish list like less frequently than I maybe thought I would, which is interesting. I like thinking about lists. I like lists. I'm very list reliant when I'm getting ready to do things as well, so that's interesting. That is my check-in for April 2023. I can't believe it's already turning to be almost May Day. I wish everybody a happy and thoughtful and adventurous May Day, if you celebrate May Day as a holiday of any sort, a labor holiday. It's mostly a labor, historical labor movement, radical labor movement day for me, but it's also, a holiday in other ways as well. So I wish you a good one, and I will see you again soon. Again, do check out our live tomorrow morning, Sarah and I doing 21 tarot questions. I hope to see some of you there. Thanks and have a great day.